This is the J. Scott Outdoors podcast on Western big game hunting and fishing, brought to you by GoHunt.com Insider. Research faster, hunt more. Go to GoHunt.com/insider and join today. I'm your host, Jay Scott, and I live and breathe hunting and fishing, spending half the year in the field experiencing God's creation. I hope you'll enjoy hearing about our adventures. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today I'm honored to have a good friend on the episode with us. Cody Goff is someone that I've known for a long time. He's an avid Coues Deer hunter and likes long-range glassing and lives in Arizona. I've been good friends with him and his hunting partner, Cody Nelson, for a long time. Cody sells radios, and today's episode we're going to talk a lot about radios and hunting and go all the way down to the equipment and some of the tactics that you can use with a radio. Cody, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Jay. Thanks for having me, bud.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cody, one of the things I want to start off with here after you give a brief introduction of yourself and the company you work for, et cetera, and what you're doing these days. I also want to talk to you in 2013 December. You had a Coues Deer tag in Unit 23 in Arizona and harvested an awesome buck. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business, and then we'll dive into your Coues Deer hunt, and I'll ask you some questions about that.
That sounds great. Thanks. Yeah, name's Cody Goff, and I work with a company called Aircom. We do national two-way communications, so that includes two-way radios, satellite phones, you name it. But that's really our specialty is two-way, and we really provide for people across the entire country.
And Cody, with this job, you're traveling quite a bit. Part of your business is you meet with a lot of mining companies and people like that. Can you tell us a little bit about your travels and where this business takes you?
No, absolutely. I mean, we are really, really well known, Aircom, for providing radio communications and two-way communications for mines. We handle the operations for companies like Freeport-McMoRan, now companies like Midway Gold, Barrick Gold, KGMH International. So we travel anywhere, across Arizona into New Mexico, all over Texas, Oklahoma, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Nevada, Utah. And so we also do quite a bit of work with a lot of guys in the oil and gas industry. So it takes me as far east as West Virginia and Pennsylvania, Ohio. So we get to work with a lot of really cool different industries and meet a lot of different people. So it's pretty exciting, actually.
That's awesome. And just to be clear, though, I mean, you sell big orders, but you can also sell onesies and twosies to people that are in the outdoor industry or hunters or fishermen or what have you, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And we, it's funny working with big construction companies, oil and gas, mining. A lot of these guys are all obviously hunters and outdoors people. And so I run into a lot of those people that I end up talking to just on the side that want 2 or 4 or 6 radios just for them and their buddies for hunting purposes. So yeah, it's something we can handle from you need 2 radios down to you need a massive communication system.
Right on, and we'll get into some of that later. Cody, I want to talk to you about in 2013, you harvested an awesome buck in Unit 23, and some years before that, we've been on a lot of hunts together, and Dar and I were there you shot a buck in 22, and you've shot bucks in Mexico, and Coues Deer is one of your passions. Tell me a little bit about the hunt in 2013, and not only about the hunt, but what it meant to you to finally harvest a buck, 110 inches or better, and kind of the quest that you had been on.
No, absolutely. That hunt was awesome because, not just my own personal quest, but guys like Cody Nelson and Aaron Bittner and yourself, having guys involved that I just really enjoy spending time with, and that we all share that kind of same passion. All being guys that have been hunting Coues deer now for, gosh, for myself, 25 years probably. It's always that goal to go out and keep trying to push yourself, and this hunt really was kind of the epitome of that. And I had a lot of good friends out helping me. We got to all spend that time together, but really push ourselves. So, as we all know, getting those December tags has become a lot more difficult. And that was my first December tag, and I think about almost 10 years. So the excitement, even right from the beginning of drawing that, and to have that kind of an opportunity, just really considered myself blessed. But we spent, my gosh, I don't even know how many days, probably more than 20 days scouting prior to that hunt, and we're really lucky enough to find a couple of great pockets where the rut was really, really strong. We were seeing a lot of different bucks coming in and out. We were able to cover a lot of different areas, and part of that because of radios and two-way radio communication, we were able to be pretty spread out and still keep in touch with what was going on throughout the day. But, I think probably the most awesome part for me with that specific hunt was that, we hunted 9 straight days, and it really took everything we had physically and mentally to keep pushing ourselves, and in part of it really to have the patience. I think anybody that hunts Coues deer realizes that patience is important if you're trying to harvest a buck that's over 100 inches. But to even hit the 110 mark, I couldn't have been more excited, and not just proud, but I mean to have had good close runs involved with the experience, the highs, the lows. It was just by far the most amazing hunt for Coues deer I've been on.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. Having known you for so long, I know how much it means to you. Did you kill your buck before or after Christmas? And you mentioned rutting. Tell me about how the rut progressed on that hunt, and what you saw as far as activity.
Yeah, the interesting part with that unit, there's so much varying terrain, and you can hunt everything from low desert up to high pines. And so one thing with Unit 23, the rut really varies depending where you're at, and it's never seems to be the same year after year. But we actually harvested that deer right before Christmas. Mostly what I found with guys that know the unit well and spend a lot of time in there, the rut that year in 2013 really was better earlier than it was later. And we got, I think, really, really lucky, but part of it was hard work too, right? Putting the time in to find these pockets of does. And we just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And I think it was December 23rd was the day that we actually found that specific buck and went after him.
That's awesome. And he's gross is right at 110 inches. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
3 by 3 configuration. Does he have an extra as well?
Well, he's got one little tip starting to go on an extra on his left side, but yeah, he's a 3 by 3 front.
Right on. And Cody, today we're going to talk about radios and hunting, and there are some listeners that maybe their state doesn't allow two-way communication, and if that's the case, that's fine. They can either turn the episode off right now, or they can continue to listen. But the reality is, a lot of states do allow radio communication, and then there's some out there that from an ethical standpoint or or what have you. They may have, they're against using radios in hunting, and there are some people like that, and that's fine. And for those people, maybe this episode isn't for them. But for those of us that from time to time do use radios, I want to talk a little bit about, a quick overview of radios and what you do with satellite phones, cell boosters, spot, all of that different stuff. And, technology is always changing. And, maybe the way that our grandfathers hunted, that didn't have radios, and maybe, some people are holding on to those traditions, that's fine. And there may be hunts that, you want to harvest a Boone and Crockett animal, or a animal that's eligible for Pope and Young, and you don't want to use two-way communication. I think that's great. And I think the integrity level out there of people to say, I use radios to hunt, but this particular buck I want to kill, and if I'm fortunate to harvest them, I want to put them in the record book. Then that's great. But talk to me a little bit about what services you provide and how they benefit the hunters today.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we kind of pride ourselves in that we're more than just a two-way radio communications company, but we carry predominantly we're a provider for commercial and professional grade radios, so they're not going to be the little Motorola talkabouts you go buy at Walmart. We cover everything from, again, two-way radios, satellite phones. We are a Global Star provider in one of the primary providers in the Southwest. We do cell boosters. So what everybody would know as Wilson Electronics is now WeBoost. We carry the entire WeBoost line and Smooth Talker. We even provide the Spot if guys are looking for the Spot, because really the Spot is part of Global Star and their network. So along the lines of hunters, those are going to be really the primary communication technology that we provide and that they can take advantage of.
Cody, when it comes to two-way radio communication between hunters, are there specific models that maybe you would recommend for hunters to use to be able to communicate back and forth with each other?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's certain models that really make more sense for hunters. We all know as hunters we love our gear, but we're pretty hard on it, and we put it to the test. And I think an important thing to remember with radios or satellite phones, whatever you're using, these are electronics, and their number one biggest weakness tends to be water. We probably do more repairs on two-way radios because of water damage than anything. So, making sure you've got the right model of radio and really kind of stepping up into a minimum of a commercial grade radio really makes a big difference. Some of the examples I would give would be the Motorola CP200, which is now really the CP200D.
Cody, can you tell me the difference between VHF and UHF radios?
Yeah, absolutely. And, the funny thing, even when I really got into the industry, I always knew there was a difference, but I didn't even know what they really meant. So VHF literally stands for very high frequency. UHF stands for ultra high frequency. So people will always ask me, what is the difference? What's better? Well, the answer is really it depends. When you look at VHF is really better in situations in application where you need longer transmission. Okay, so it's going to give you a further line of sight. So if you're more concerned about being able to talk 10 or 15 miles apart, the biggest issue will still be line of sight. VHF is going to be your better option. On UHF, it's going to penetrate and bounce better, the signal itself. So when you look really at hunting out here more in the West, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, Utah, California, anything like that, we're going to have canyons with a lot of protrusions, rock, things in the way. thicker country up in the trees, if you want a better, stronger penetrating signal, then you're going to go with UHF. And, for myself, I really ran VHF originally for a long time, and I've really found for my own needs and how we hunt, UHF is the better option.
Okay, and then tell me the difference between analog versus digital.
Absolutely. So the technology that everybody's been used to up to this point is analog radio. What's happened now is really with the improvements of technology and in digital signaling, we're now seeing a lot of the radios come out that have digital capability. With digital, you're going to look at probably improving at least about 20% more of your coverage and your range on the same exact frequency as you would running it in analog. It's a cleaner signal. It's going to have less RF interference in digital. It's going to give you a crisper transmission. One of the other nice things in digital, let's say you have four guys all out trying to stay in communication with each other. If you go to try to talk on a digital radio and someone else is already on it, it's not going to let you interrupt that transmission. It's going to actually give you a beep, and you'll know somebody else is actually trying to communicate. So just one of really the many advantages of starting to look at digital capable technology.
What are some of the models that you would recommend these days that are digital?
Yeah, in the digital, probably the biggest ones we do, certainly the Motorola CP200D comes to mind first. The CP200's been around forever. It's a time-tested design. Now the D, they make in different options. You can have analog only if you don't want to take advantage of digital. You can have digital models which are still capable of running in analog. So you can run channel 1 analog, channel 2 digital, channel 3 analog, channel 4 digital, and you can mix that up. The other one I really, really like that I've tested and actually I'm using myself is the Vertex EVX 531. There's also with Titan, another manufacturer we carry, they actually have a brand new HD coming out. So I'm going to be curious to test that and see how well it holds up.
And from a standpoint from, an outdoorsman's, fisherman, hunter's standpoint, I assume that there's different tiers of radios that people can buy?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you start looking at the tiers of radios, let's take like a radio that you get in the Rhino, right? Where you have a GPS and a combined radio. It can still be a nice little radio. The problem is you're running on what's called GMRS frequencies. So these are frequencies that the FCC has set aside for basically non-commercial use, general public use. Anybody can have those frequencies. A lot of times I've had guys say, oh, well, we have our own frequencies on these Rhinos. And I say, no, you don't, because you really can't program those that way. You can program a certain range of given frequencies, but you're not really able to use something that no one else has access to. So when you look at different tiers of radios, part of that tiering is going to be in the programming capability of a radio, whether today it's analog or it's actually digital capable. And you're going to start looking at things that are really important, I think, from a hunter's aspect or outdoors person's aspect. When you start looking at the ratings on these radios, a very key figure I would look at for anybody using an outdoor use is an IP57 rating. And what that IP57 rating means, you're going to have better seals for dust prevention and water prevention entering inside the unit itself. Typically that rating, and they vary a little bit by manufacturer, but how they rate that is roughly 30 minutes in a bucket of water in not allowing moisture to penetrate. And I think that's extremely important, as I know you can attest. You and I have had many a rainy day together out in the field.
Yeah.
And you got to protect these electronics, and making sure they have that type of a rating and that the seals are proper certainly falls into the tiering and the quality. So, and then obviously within the price range, I think radios are no different than any of the other hunting gear or outdoor gear, fly fishing gear you buy. You're typically going to get what you pay for in quality. And a lot of times that quality is what's on the inside that you can't see. And the quality of the connectors and the quality of the soldering that's used in the wiring. So, but we try to make sure we carry, really a wide range of product that can meet anybody's needs.
And Cody, just in general, prices of radios from low tier to high tier. I mean, what are we talking, like $100 to $5,000 or $200 to $500?
Yeah, I mean, when you're going to really get into what I would consider a true commercial grade radio, you're really going to be somewhere starting in the lower end of $200 per radio or per unit. And you can range, depending on how technical you want to get. Certain radios have keypads or limited keypads, not necessarily something completely necessary for our outdoor use. But if you are that technical and want to have readouts, you could certainly get up into, $500 per radio.
Sure.
But I also don't think that's necessary to have a quality outdoor, radio that can take a beating.
In your mind, what are the reasons to use radios for hunting?
Well, and that's a great question, Jay. I mean, I for myself, and I can say from hunting with you and us going into some pretty vast wilderness areas, first and foremost, it comes down to safety. And I'll focus specifically on hunting in Arizona. It's very common for us all to get, spread out 5 miles, 10 miles apart. And sometimes we're off into wilderness areas where there's really no cell service, and there's really no other, solid way for us to stay in communication and know everybody's okay. So safety always really is a primary use for two-way radios. I think if you're hunting in bigger parties of people, which I think has become more common these days, where you've got 3 or 4 guys out hunting together, just being able to coordinate where you're at, where you're heading, so people are aware of your location. And again, that ties into safety, but it's still that peace of mind of knowing where everybody's at.
Well, and I think another point to make there is, like you said, it seems like hunting's becoming more of a communal thing, and, you usually head out with, 2 or 3 buddies, or maybe it's just one, but, throughout the day, we've been on the end of some pretty good banter, back and forth of conversations, and, Nellie, what are you doing over there? And, just stuff that's makes it fun throughout the day to be able to communicate with your buddy. And yeah, sure, we're going to have some people listen to this episode and say, oh, I don't need to communicate with anybody, and I go out there and hunt on my own, and that's fine. People you can do whatever they want. But, I mean, I can say in the times that I use radios, communicating with my buddies often is pretty cool. And not only that, from a strategy standpoint, Dar and I on the radio a lot of times, discussing, okay, what are we going to do this afternoon? Where do you think we ought to be set up? All the strategic stuff, makes the whole hunt, to me, that much more enjoyable.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think anybody that's hunted Coues deer and frankly in different areas of New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, you might even spend very, very long periods of time glassing from a high point, even for elk. And, it can get a little monotonous and a little hard to sometimes keep the eyes peeled, right? So I think
Absolutely.
being able to have that occasional joke flying out around there keeps it a little more entertaining and joyful. But really, from a strategic point, I think that's a great point. And I know you and I and Dar and Nelson have all experienced that together. Really trying to coordinate, where we're trying to get a hunter into a specific position. It really can make it a lot easier. Not just you know for the advantage, but I think part of it too is if you're out there assisting other hunters, trying to make sure they're in a safe position, right? You start going down in a stock and everything suddenly changes, right? Nothing looks like the same it did 10 minutes ago. And it can be really beneficial to help a guy, put them in the right position and really, I think an important thing, make sure they're taking the right shot on an animal and giving the animal that type of respect.
Well, and like you said too, knowing where other people are and saying, okay, so-and-so is going to take a shot in this direction. Billy, where are you? Make sure you're in a safe area. But then from an efficiency standpoint, being a Coues Deer hunter and having big country and big canyons, and let's talk a little bit about using a radio efficiently. From my perspective, and we've already gotten past the point of we use radios to efficiently hunt and kill animals. Let's look at it from a perspective of efficiency.
Certainly.
I've seen people that don't use radios, and I have been on hunts where I don't use a radio. And let's say I take a shot at an animal. Let's say that I don't make a perfect shot, and I have no way of knowing whether I hit the animal, didn't hit the animal, where did the animal go. A lot of times in a situation where you have a spotter and you have someone that you have radio communication with, if you take your shot and let's say the muzzle blast or what have you, you can't see where the animal is, it is very nice to have someone that's watching your back from above and saying, okay, he got up and he moved to the left, he's standing there 40 yards below the saguaro or what have you, and then you can get a second shot, you can be efficient, get the animal down on the ground. And I have found radio communication to be extremely effective and extremely efficient. And, one would argue that, yes, sometimes it's too easy. Yes. But then there's sometimes that, you got 3 guys on a radio and you still can't get the deer killed. I mean, so, it's to each his own, but from an efficiency standpoint, using a radio to communicate is very an efficient tactic, I think.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I've had the unfortunate experience of helping spot and seeing an animal wounded, right, and really the hunter himself being in a position where they have no idea where that animal went. They fired the shot. After that first shot's off, they really weren't able to stay behind the scope. They're trying to get back on it, but it's too late. We're in dense, cover in terrain. And I think that plays a big part when you start getting into some of this dense vegetation. And with really today's technology and optics and ammunition and rifles, it's more common for guys to be taking 500-yard shots across a canyon. But it also, I think, makes it more susceptible, for some error. So, like you said, having that spotter in place many times, I've seen it really make the difference in being able to still harvest the animal, get a second finishing shot on it, and not let that animal suffer. I think it's a key benefit that's certainly worth taking advantage of. I'm not sure it gives us an advantage really over hunting these animals, because it's, at the end of the day, any of us that have, we know how tough these animals really are and really how intelligent they are. And I think sometimes we give human beings too much credit that we're smarter than they are.
Well, you bring up a good point. I think for those listeners out there listening, one thing that I would say from a tactical standpoint, hunting Coues deer, hunting mule deer, hunting elk in open country, one thing I would say is that if you can leave a spotter on the animal while you're making your stalk and you can have communication with that spotter, your chances of harvesting that animal go way, way up. And, back to what I was saying about efficiency and effectiveness, if our goal as hunters is to enjoy being out in the outdoors and harvesting an animal and harvesting them, effectively, and getting them down on the ground and a quick death, then personally I don't see why radio communication is a problem. Now I understand, from a record book standpoint, I understand that there's regulations that don't allow that, and that's fine. But there are a ton of people that could care less about the record book, and there's a ton of people that, they've shot 130-inch Coues deer with the radio, and they're not going to enter it in the Boone and Crockett anyway. So,
sure.
The other thing I would say is I've seen with the radio using a spotter, if the spotter is watching the animal and has the ability to tell you, stop moving, the animal is looking around, or if the spotter is able to say that, the buck is bedded, go ahead and move and get in position, it raises your level of effectiveness way up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even in that moment, right, we've all experienced in that moment, whether you're going to let the string loose on the bow or pull the trigger on the rifle, our heart's racing. There's a lot of adrenaline. And I think it gives you a little bit of a little more relaxed feeling and a little more confidence when you're ready to take that shot, knowing those details, knowing, okay, he's bedded, he's not paying attention, or hey, to look and quit, don't move. And I think that's key to taking really a more relaxed and focused shot on the animal and giving them that kind of respect. And for those that, again, back to the record books, everybody needs to make sure if your interests do lie in submitting something to the record books, make sure you're familiar with their requirements and what they do not allow. In some cases, they will not allow any sort of electronic communications, as well as some states. There's not a lot left, but there are states out there, so make sure you do refer to your local game and fish and make sure you understand the rules and regulations in the state that you're hunting.
Yeah, and I think, too, you can hunt with radios, and let's say you find a buck, and you're like, wow, this is a big buck, and, man, I would like to harvest that animal, and he's big enough that he would go in the record book. Then all you have to do is turn your radio off, don't have any communication, put it in your backpack, and just hunt the animal and see how it goes. I mean, I've been on hunts where guys say, when I'm guiding or what have you, and they say, look, I'd like to enter this in Pope and Young, and I don't want to have any, two-way communication. It's very simple. Leave the radios, turn them off, leave them in the truck and go hunt.
Absolutely.
So, it's you can do both. You can hunt with them and you can hunt without them, and it all depends on the person and the hunter, and everybody's got to make their own decision. Cody, tell me about, we've talked about radios, and tell me about satellite phones, which satellite phone you use. And I am a Global Star. I've had their service for a long time, and for a while there, I had real good service, and then it seems like my calls were getting dropped all the time, and
sure.
I hear that they've put close to $1 billion or something, some crazy number into their satellites. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to satellite phones, we are a Global Star provider. I don't provide Iridium or any of the other competitors. And there's a reason we go with Global Star. And I'm glad you brought up, there was a period of time there, right, where people were having a lot of issues. And part of that reason was some of the older satellites were coming to end of life, right? Those satellites actually don't live there forever. They have only so much fuel and power within them, so they do have a limited life, and it doesn't matter if it's Globalstar or any of the other providers. Globalstar has gone back out now and invested $1 billion in their network, have launched a complete new fleet of satellites. And really another distinguishing factor to think about, especially if you're going to be outdoors. And I don't care if you're just backpacking for a weekend alone into the wilderness, maybe you're out fly fishing alone, to have something to make that emergency call. The reality is we're pushing the boundaries further and further into the wildernesses, trying to create a greater adventure, trying to find new places to get away. And you need to be prepared, no matter what happens. I mean, I've had it happen on hunts where we had a good friend get hurt, right? So it's critical to me that I have a way to make an emergency call when all else fails, and that's one thing a satellite phone can do. So again, back to Globalstar, part of the key in satellite phones also has to do with their hubs on the planet itself. And Globalstar has more hubs where if they have a hub go down, they can redirect those signals on the Earth itself and improve and move coverages in emergency situations that other providers cannot. The other providers have one centralized location that if it goes down, their entire service is down. Okay, and so back to that period of time, yeah, I think a lot of us experienced where all of a sudden these phones weren't working as well. And a big part of that was they were having satellites they were having to bring back down. They're not allowed to just leave their satellites out there, right? In the case of these satellite phone providers, so they have to actually, boost these things back through the orbit, back to Earth. And so they were down a lot of those satellites. They're back up and running. I think the great thing now, these phones today are a lot smaller, they're a lot lighter, and we're all looking for ways to save weight when we're out in the field. And really there's just more flexibility in the plans. You can pay as you go with your usage. You have a variety of different monthly or annual plans. So really, to me, they're more affordable today than ever, depending on what type of application you're looking at. Again, there's also Spot, which is part of Globalstar. A lot of people sometimes don't realize that. So with the improvement back in their satellites, your Spot connections now are even better than they were before, 5 years ago. So there's a lot of options out there when you look at the satellite phones today versus 10 years ago when we all started really looking at them, right?
Mm-hmm. Cody, what about cell phone boosters? I know there's cell phone boosters that you can have in your car. There's cell phone boosters that you can have in your home or your cabin. Talk to me a little bit about the efficiency and effectiveness of those cell phone boosters.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest misconceptions is that these cell boosters somehow create a signal, and they actually don't create a signal. They do exactly what they say. They actually boost a signal. So if you can get a bar, on your phone in the middle of nowhere, if you've got a booster in that vehicle, you can boost the signal and get a call out. I've experienced it. I know I've experienced it with you, right? Mm-hmm. In some of the places we venture into, and it's always nice being able to not just, for myself with work, I'm kind of always on call, making sure I'm taking care of customers. So it's important to me that I not only get my messages, but I can actually get the call out if I need to. So there's a wide variety today, whether it's just a 3G need or you're running 4G LTE. There's a different range of boosters for your vehicles. If you have a cabin that you hunt from, there's a ton of great options for your home or cabin. If you're in a more remote area, it can really make the difference and really work better today with the different changes they've made through the FCC, you're going to have quite a bit less interference that you're running into, and people can contact me anytime they have questions on it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how do the listeners contact you? And you're based out of Arizona. You're based out of the Phoenix area, but you handle all over the country.
Absolutely.
Tell people how they can get a hold of you, either by email, website, phone number, whatever you want to give out there.
Sure. And we really see the need out there for people in the outdoors to have, options for different two-way communications. Guys can go to outdoor2way.com, and that's with the number 2, so outdoor2way.com, and you can get a little more information on some of the equipment that we carry, things that we recommend. We're actually going to have an area where guys can post and kind of blog on their opinions of what they like or what they've tested and used. And you can also always reach me on my cell phone at 602-329-1773. My personal direct email is Cody, C-O-D-Y, at aircom, A-I-R-C-O-M-M, so that's 2 M's.com.
That's awesome, Cody. I've known you for a long time, and other than being an Arizona Wildcat, you're a great guy and a great friend. I had to throw that in there.
I knew it was coming.
But I just want to tell the listeners out there, I've known Cody a long time and hunt together, and I know that you can really help some of the listeners out there with their radio and satellite phone and different types of communication, cell phone boosters. So if you guys have any needs at all, give Cody a call. He'll treat you right, and I just want to thank you and appreciate you for being on today, Cody, and shedding some light on two-way communications and what you provide. And it's been fun hunting with you over the years. Look forward to doing it again. And congrats on that big Coues deer that you shot on that December 23 hunt. Did you draw any tags this year, or what's your status?
Well, I drew my Arizona antelope last year, so I'm not going to complain I didn't draw antelope this year. That was well worth the wait. But no elk this year, unfortunately, sitting on 12 points. And just putting in for deer and sheep, so we'll see how the luck rides. But yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. You've been a good friend, and I appreciate you, giving us the opportunity to kind of share this information and hopefully help educate, people out there in the outdoors on the ways that they can be in communication and stay connected.
That sounds good, Cody. You take care, and until I see you next time, God bless you, buddy, okay?
Hey, God bless you too, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the J. Scott Outdoors Western Big Game Hunting and Fishing Podcast, brought to you by GoHunt.com Insider. Research faster, hunt more. Go to GoHunt.com/insider and join today.